The greatest spectacle in racing has held its 2026 edition. Records were broken, and a man with 4 names would be the 3rd Swede to win it. But just before all of that was one event so corny it could have only been thought up by a nutcase from Nebraska. A 2-lap heat at one of the world's greatest motoring arenas with 1,800 horsepower laid to the asphalt between 6 different highly refined prototype vehicles. This year's edition, the second running in its storied history, saw some slippery sausage moves before a controversial underdog rose to the front. But before we get too deep into this ordeal, what in the wiener am I talking about? These ramblings of a crazy person today are on the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, and the racing has spurned on as of late. That's right, bitches, you clicked on a video breaking down an exhaustive history of the Wienermobile. Now first off, a little bit about the Oscar Mayer company as a whole. Go to the grocery, go into the meat section, look in the refrigerator, and find the yellow, red, and white tricolor. This is what we're after. The Oscar Mayer Company is a subsidiary of the Kraft Heinz Corporation. They make all of your favorite cheeses and condiments, among a slew of other things that you would never realize, which I will now show you. The Oscar Mayer Company in particular was started by Oscar F. Mayer, a German immigrant. Anyways, moving on quickly, schnell. In 1873, Oscar F. Mayer just happened to be walking down a street in Detroit when a sign grabbed his attention. It read, Junge Volta. The young mayor walked right in and would become a butcher boy, aged 14. It was clearly a very different time. After 10 laborious years, Oscar Mayer had risen from apprentice to master, and he had enough savings to start his own butcher shop. The butcher shop was a wholly family-owned operation in the beginning. The shop was a wholly family-owned operation in the beginning. Brothers Gottfried, Max, and Oscar F. Mayer would all work together to bring European traditions to the American meat industry through their Chicago storefront. As any good business tends to do, it grew around the greater Chicago area, becoming known for their Edelweiss trademark, being one of the first meat companies to stamp a trademark on their product to distinguish their meats from rival shops. In 1919 would mark a major commitment to growth for the company. That year they would acquire a failing meatpacking plant in Madison, Wisconsin. The plant was close to where the cattle is raised, cutting down on transportation costs. This, among many other things, transformed the Oscar Mayer brand from a local Chicago immigrant-owned meat shop to a fledgling American icon. Over the ensuing decades, Oscar Mayer moved from strength to strength, remaining a family-owned operation until 1981 when it was acquired by the General Foods Company. They would merge with Kraft Inc., soon thereafter becoming Kraft General Foods Inc., bringing us more or less up to speed with everything that we care about in that regard. We're here to talk about the history of a wiener on wheels, so first off, who in the hell thought of that? According to a PDF file, just really sounds so weird to say in this modern era. According to a PDF file published by Oscar Mayer, the very first Wienermobile was dreamed up by Carl Mayer and brought to life by a general body of Chicago. By 1940, the Wienermobile was touring across the Midwest and East Coast of the United States. The next year, a bunch of folks decided to get into another really big, really ugly, terrible, years-long fight. The conflict took valuable resources away from the less important ventures, and unfortunately the Wienermobile was not deemed an important venture, so it was sequestered to a warehouse for the time being. This was the first break in the Wienermobile's story. Now, it did come to pass by 1952 when a fleet of new 22-foot-long hot dogs rolled onto the streets. These dogs were built on a Dodge chassis and they used a Chevrolet V8 engine, producing about 255 horsepower with a 2-speed automatic gearbox. In 1958, designer of the Miller Beer logo, Brooks Stevens, a real genius, would take his design prowess and rework the Wienermobile into a retro-futuristic style. The 58 Wienermobile was mounted on a Willys Jeep chassis, while little else is known about the exact specifications of the third edition of the Wienermobile. Some cursory searches into the Willys CJ5 and we can get an idea of what we're working with here. This edition likely used an inline 4-cylinder with a 3-speed gearbox. The actual sausage body was the first Wienermobile to be cast in fiberglass, helping create the bubbly look in the windows. Just over a decade later, in-house Oscar Mayer mechanics would mount a new Wienermobile onto a Chevrolet motorhome chassis. The motorhome Wienermobile would serve until 1977, when the second retirement of the Wienermobiles would come. 50 years after the first Wienermobile had rolled onto the Chicago streets, a celebration was due to be held to commemorate its anniversary in 1986. Public interest was so massive that the Oscar Mayer Company was swayed to bring back the cherished motoring icon. By 1988, a new high-tech fleet had been created by Dave Stevens, son of the 58 Wiener designer. The new fleet followed in the tracks left by the generations before, a fiberglass sausage body mounted onto a Chevy truck chassis. This fleet was equipped with a stereo system, refrigerators, 80s cell phone capability, and even a microwave oven. All of these commodities made the fleet perfectly equipped to travel around the world, representing the brand in countries like Spain, America, and Japan. This fleet looked stunning, but the high center of pressure nature of a Wienermobile historically has made the craft a little bit dicey. In 1995, General Motors and Harry Bradley had designed a new Wienermobile concept, and they decided to test it at the California Institute of Technology Pasadena in their wind tunnel. This fleet was the most technical yet. According to a 2009 Halo Pink article, credible as they are, this edition was the first Wienermobile to be designed using computer-aided design, or CAD. GM has been oddly tight-lipped over the years with the exact specifications of the engine. It is generally believed that the chassis was a slightly modified in-house truck chassis. This next iteration is the model seen around the country today, and the one used in the Wienie 500. Its designers used all of the learnings in the over 65 years leading up to this moment to bring a truly modern, robust design. The current Wienermobile features a Vortex 6-liter V8 engine with a 4-speed transmission mounted to a W4 Chevrolet truck chassis, all shrouded in the iconic fiberglass hot dog. The Vortex power plant can produce about 300 horsepower, while the smooth, sausagey shape cuts through the air as the craft travels in speeds excess of 60 miles per hour. There's one final Wienermobile to talk about. It's a micro Wienermobile that was built on a Mini Cooper frame in 2008, and unfortunately it did suffer a crash in Oak Brook, Illinois on July 23, 2024. Luckily, all the hot doggers and drivers involved sustained serious injuries, and the same could not be said for the micro Wienermobile. It is still unclear what the status is of the vehicle at this time. So with all that blabbering out of the way, let's get into the real meat and potatoes of this all. The Wienie 500. It has long been said that the first motor race was held when the second car was made. The ambition of our kind makes competition an afterthought on the way to total domination. Naturally, when drivers are given such an elite, tough test as driving the Wienermobile, cream finds its way to rise to the top. Many different official and unofficial Wiener races have been held over the years, but in 2025 it was decided to make the show legit. There was no better place for a Midwestern sausage company to race their special Wiener cars than at the biggest stage in American open-wheel racing. The inaugural Wienie 500 was to be held on the Carb Day for the 2025 Indy 500. The idea was simple. 6 Wienermobiles, named for different hot dog styles, would race 2 laps around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Wienie cars, as I've decided to call them from here, hark back to an era of driver and riding mechanic. Each of the vehicles is piloted by a driver and co-driver / spotter. The race itself seems a concoction of pure advertisement, convenient staging, and a genuine raw dogging at the wheel. The 2025 edition would see Chili Dog starting in the rear 6th, Seattle Dog 5th, Sonoran Dog 4th, Slaw Dog 3rd, New York Dog 2nd, and on the pole is the Chicago Dog. The race would fire off from a standing start for the 2-lap heat, while the green flag would appear to catch the pole sitter off guard immediately, and their lead would be succeeded to the New York Dog. They would reach close to 30 miles per hour in the South Chute. Coming to treacherous turn number 2, the New York Dog would bobble a little bit, and Chicago Dog would surge back out in front. The Sonoran Dog would reach as high as 2nd, heading into the 3rd turn, lap 1. Just as in the greatest spectacle in racing, Wienie car field would round turn 4 single file, setting up for a slipstream onto the front stretch. As the field crosses the bricks to start the vice-versa lap, the Sonoran Dog would vie for the lead, making an impressive dive in turn 1 on Chicago Dog. Coming out of turn 2, the lead battle had at least 3 or 4 links on the rest of the field. Suddenly, second lap Sonoran Dog would succumb to an overcooked sausage, taking them out of the race. The field would all smoothly rake it around the Sauerbraten, teeing up on a last lap battle with 2 corners to go. Coming out of the 4th turn, the Chicago Dog throws a block on the Slaw Dog. With 5/8 of a mile left to go, was this enough? The Slaw Dog tucks out just enough for the driver to see ahead of them. They get a huge run as they close up before the line. They snag it away from Chicago Dog. They ended up being a photo finish with just about a half a Frankenfurter between the Wienie cars. This first edition of the Wienie 500 was one for the ages with a photo finish classic. But what about this year? What about the 2026 edition of the Wienie 500? Now it's a new year and another edition of the Wienie 500. This year's starting grid is starting in the rear, newcomer Corn Dog. 5th, love 'em or hate 'em, it's New York Dog. Chili Dog starts outside 2nd row and 4th. Seattle Dog starts in 3rd. Outside pole is the one and only Chicago Dog. And on the pole is a Southern icon, Slaw Dog. Another standing start and Corn Dog fired off like a gun. New York Dog appears to hold back a little bit and let the field sort itself out. At the front, pole sitter Chicago Dog gets away well and immediately pulls out in front of a Slaw Dog. Heading into turn 1, Slaw Dog tries to come back in the high lane, but has to get back down as they head to turn 2. Like a butcher shop storefront, the Wienie cars head through turn 2 in a chain, tip to tip. Coming out of the corner, Chicago Dog's ride starts to get a little bit rough, for the field trying to take him on both sides. Chicago Dog throws a dirty block on Seattle Dog as they poke their tip up the inside. Slaw Dog is in the jump seat as the field streams down the backstretch. They gain momentum and fire it up the inside on Chicago Dog. As the Slaw Dog swings it back high, the pack behind him weaves to make the tires a little bit stickier. The field falls in line as they slide through turn 3, and then a little bit more weaving, preparing for a big last lap. Slaw Dog takes the top lane, forcing Chicago Dog, if they have a run, to take it to the bottom lane. Slaw Dog is trying to build a little bit of run on the field leading into the last lap. Will it pay off? Slaw Dog covers the low side as the white flag comes out. Chili Dog and Corn Dog follow suit. Chili Dog pulls off a brave pass on Chicago Dog into the first turn and immediately sets their sights on Slaw Dog. Chicago Dog's rear end starts to wiggle through turn 1 as Slaw Dog comes down and cuts off their air. Slaw Dog runs way wide through the short chute, having to steer it twice into the second turn. Surely they will kill their momentum. Slaw Dog again struggling to stick it into the inside line and runs way wide toward the wall. Chili Dog's powering forward. Chicago Dog is right up on Chili Dog as they come through. In desperation, Chili Dog steers high, nearly pressing Slaw Dog up against the wall, but it's Chicago Dog with the momentum. Then they try and send it way low. When out of nowhere, New York Dog makes it 3 wide. New York Dog surges past the both of them with a huge run. Slaw Dog follows him through the narrow gap on the inside. The field straightened itself out heading into 3. It's New York Dog from Chili Dog with Slaw Dog very close behind. New York Dog would round 3 with a lead of 2 or 3 sausages of an average size between them in the field. The crowd is highly partisan. They are booing the New York Dog. New York Dog sends it high and slides a little bit while they get a hold of their Wienie car or hang on tight for the big finish. New York Dog has a huge gap between the field, and all they have to do now is power it down to the line. Chili Dog closes the gap and pressures New York Dog at the finish. It's New York Dog who holds onto it and wins the second annual Wienie 500 in front of a highly passionate crowd. Whew! Well, geez. That was a lot more than any of us, I think, were expecting. This journey began with us talking about a small butcher shop in Chicago, and ended with us talking about a bunch of wiener cars going around a circle track. Thanks for sticking around. It really has been fun. I've learned a lot about something so iconic and mysterious at the same time. There is, believe it or not, still a lot more that I felt was unnecessary or not pertinent, so if you have any interest in checking out more, I've included links to all my sources in the comments below, or in the description below, so you can check it out. And of course, I will include the links to the 2025 and 2026 editions of the Wienie 500, so you can watch for yourself. But do be warned, Will Buxton has zero tact with his innuendos. Not saying I do either, it's just neither does Will Buxton. Anyways, this has been Southeast Revrets, learning you a thing or two about the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Remember to love one another, and we'll see you next time.